Looks like we're online this time.
Hey.
Yay! Yes.
Let's do an experiment. So, look at this experiencing that's present. Look at this bubble of experience that is just here. Look at it. Light is appearing. Right? Light's appearing. Sound is appearing. Touch is appearing. You don't need to start it. You can't stop it. It's just here. Right? And you can feel it, right? You can feel what light feels like. You can't say what it feels like. It's obviously pretty subtle or whatever. But light has a certain feeling. It has a certain texture. Always present. It's always there. Sound is present. Sound has a certain feeling. You can feel it's present. It's always here, like an atmospheric presence that sort of rises and falls. Just this sort of a fullness. Touch is always there. The full field of the sense of touch is always, whether there's particular little flare-ups or just sort of the background tingle. It's always there. And it has its own very distinct flavor. All this flavor is just effortlessly here, just spontaneously here, coming from nowhere. But you're not doing it. You don't need to do it. You can't stop doing it. It does itself. You can't control it. Right? You can't control what patterns of light happen to show up in your eyes, in your vision. You can't control what sounds happen to show up in your field of hearing. You can't control what thoughts happen to pop into your stream of thought. You can't control what emotions show up. Feel the sea of emotion. It's just even if you're not feeling some kind of a strong emotion in particular, it's just sort of this tidal feeling and this sort of swelling and these little flavors and whiffs of quality, right? Always there, it's always the field is always full. Thought is strange thought. What is thought? There's always thought present. Look at what it is. What is it? Thought is something. It's a substance. There's something there, or you wouldn't know you're thinking. There's the presence of something there. So what is this? What is this thought? What's it like? What's its texture? What's it made of? Just check it out. And you're feeling it, so feel what it is made of. Feel what it feels like. Something subtle like the aurora borealis or something, who knows what. Some sort of a strange little something. And then everything else, just feel what else is present that we don't classify as a sense field or something. Just these weird vibes and tinglings and moods and little just wisps of energy or vibe or just, we don't have language for these things, but the experiential field is full and it has no boundary. Feel it. It's right here. This is the bubble of your experience. This is the presence of your experience. You're the sole inhabitant. You're the only one here. You're the only one in it. And feel what that feels like. Feel how it's doing itself. How it's always full. Feel how the attention just sort of spontaneously drifts here and there, settles on this and settles on that. It zooms in on something and then zooms out and flutters around and just very spontaneously, very dynamically waving around. Check it out, just the way it is. Just check it out. It's always like that. But you're very familiar with this. It's nothing, it's always, you're always experiencing. But see the way it is. Just see what it is. What's it made of? What is all of this presence, all of these qualities, all these patterns? What's it made of? Don't think about it. Don't try and analyze it. Just feel it. Try and explore what it's made of by feeling what it is that's present. Feel what light is. Just feel what it is. It's something, it's not nothing. What is it? What does light feel like? What does thought feel like? What does sound feel like? Feel what sound feels like, and feel what light feels like, and feel the way they feel different. Feel the way you can't really find a boundary between them. It's not like sound hits a wall and ends, and then light starts on the other side of some wall, is it? It's just the presence of light just sort of tapers off into a fuzzy edgelessness that's just wide open. And sound is present, again, as a field of that texture. It has no edges, no boundary, just sort of a very nebulous, infinite trailing off. So what field does sound appear in relative to light? Where is it located? Check it out, look and see. Is it behind it? Is it above it? Is it beneath it? Is it next to it? Is it not really spatial at all? What's that? Just check it out. There's no right or wrong answer. Just check it out. Play with it. Look at where these things are. These things are actuality. These experiential fields are actuality. Explore them just in themselves without just, as humans, we're used to concentrating on what's appearing, what am I hearing or what am I seeing? But just look at the field of sound itself and the field of vision itself. Just check them out. Check out where they are. They're just floating here. Look at the field of vision. Right? It's just this sort of a fuzzy-edged sideways ovoid, and it's just floating. It's not sitting on anything. Right? It's just buoyantly sitting right here, right where it is. It's not nailed to anything, right? It's not glued to anything. It's not held up by anything. It's just here. Just feel the way that's just appearing spontaneously. And the sense of sensation. If you open your eyes, the sense of sensation seems to follow your body. If you close your eyes and explore, what shape is the field of touch? Well, at first it seems like it's body shape because we have a kind of a residual body image in our mind. But it's just kind of a weird, textural field, isn't it? And it doesn't really have a lot of stability, does it? It doesn't have edges. It's just a sort of a weird field of tingling. Weird field of sort of weird tingles and touches and sensation. Where's the field of touch compared to the field of vision? When we're visualizing our body, we sort of envision the field of vision as being in our heads or something, and the field of touch as being in the body around it. But just look at where it is in itself, just here in this bubble of your experience. What kind of location does it have? Check it out. Notice how the patterns, everything that appears is instantly gone. The sound that you hear is just gone forever as soon as it happens. Never going to hear that same sound again. Just notice that. Notice the actuality of it. Don't think of the idea of it. Watch it happening. Watch it disappearing as it appears. And whatever you happen to be seeing, if your eyes are closed, you're seeing these little sparkles or whatever, right? Watch how they just completely disappear, never to recur again in that instant. If your eyes are open, whatever you happen to be looking at, you'll never see exactly that again. In thought, whatever thought happens to be, whatever thought seems to be present, notice how it's just utterly gone, completely gone forever, just in the very instant of its apparition. Notice how none of these patterns have any duration. It's not like they appear and they sit here for a second or something. Notice that. As soon as they appear, they're gone. Their appearing is their disappearance. Check out how that happens. Check out how weird that is. Check it out. Look at it. Look closely at it. We don't usually bother to look because we're usually so absorbed with our narration. But check out just the way, the dynamism of experience itself. It's very obvious. It's easy to check out. It's right here, always. Its appearing is its disappearing. Any configuration you experience is gone. It's just utterly gone. And you can kind of remember what just happened or what you just thought or something, but that memory isn't the same thing happening again. It's a new occurrence that you hold as being similar to the one that occurred, but it's not really. It's not the same thing. It's just something new, and that's utterly gone as soon as it appears. It's like every pattern that is present is just continually slipping away utterly forever, just in the instant. And yet this is here. This doesn't come and go, does it? This presence is just absolutely solidly here. All these patterns appearing with such dynamism and such elusive quality. It's here in this presence, and the presence is completely inviolable. Check it out. What is the presence? Feel what presence is. Just feel it. It's very obvious. It's very solid. Presence is very palpable. But we can't say what it is. Just check it out. Just feel it. Feel the reality of it. Feel the actuality of actuality. And you can't find presence as something separate, can you? It just always shows up with all of this information, right? All this light and sound and thought and just all this strange patternings, all these strange experiential patternings. Inextricably. Very strange circumstance, isn't it? This is you. You are here, like always. You don't need to put yourself here. You can't take yourself away. You're just here. Always you here. Alone. The sole inhabitant of the bubble of your experience. All these crazy patterns wisping through. Nothing else, nothing missing. That's all it is. That's all it's ever been. Wow. That guy likes ginger. Anyone who hasn't tried the chai, it's got a kick. I recommend it. Cheap thrills. So what's that like? Is this interesting? What's here? This bizarre presence, all of this very, very strange qualities that just are continually appearing and never here because they're already gone. How weird is that? And this flimsy basis is what we build our entire narration of our lives and our history and the universe and the world and human politics and everything on. Just this instantaneous presence of this weird fact of your experience. That's all there is here.
saying at lunch that one of the results, I don't know if this is transitory or long-term results of the more I get what it is that you're pointing out for us, is like, where does motivation come from?
Sure, where does it?
I mean, it's like, it's hard to be motivated for much more than just like watching TV and knitting these days.
Well, you're motivated when you are, right? Like
Right.
you just started speaking, so a motivation appeared to speak. Where did it come from? How'd that happen? Where does any motivation come from? You can't, it's not like you're doing it or you can stop it. It's just whatever, right? More patternings appear. All there is these instantaneous patternings appearing. And we qualify them in all these different ways of, oh, it's sensory experience, or it's thought, or it's motivation, or it's emotion, or blah, blah, blah. But these are just categorizing. It's like labeling something that is already a done deal. It's already appearing. And it's appearing spontaneously, uncontrollably. And fundamentally, what's appearing is completely elusive in terms of defining what it actually is. What is motivation? I mean, we think we know motivation is motivation. Yeah, okay, cool. But look at that closely. What is it? It's weird. It's like this energy that just, you know. But what is light? What is anything? It's just a weird apparition of, spontaneous appearance of something that you don't know what it is. We're so familiar with all of the textures of all this presence, but even as we're familiar with it, it's completely transcendental. We're so familiar with light, but we don't know what light is. We're so familiar with thought, but we don't know what thought is. We're so familiar with our personal investments and motivations, but we don't know what they are. It's just this continual endless dance that we're doing.
Well, there's like this personality trace idea that like if you don't have motivation, everything will fall apart, and yet there's like everything doesn't fall apart.
Of course not.
And it's like, how would I get to where I am today? It's like, well, what difference does it make? I already am.
Yeah.
Here.
You get what you get, and that's what you get.
Right.
And you got there by getting there, and you go where you're going by going there.
Right. But it's like this part of me wants to grab back hold of my anxiety and make it like a.
Yeah, sure. Well, this is very familiar. We have a habit. We have a long, lifelong history of relating to things in terms of the soap opera with all of this angst, and and it's juicy. I mean, there's a certain attraction there because it's a soap opera. It's like, who doesn't like a good soap opera? The Tragedy of My Life, starring Peter Brown. I mean, who wouldn't thrill to that? I mean, I'm sure none of you would. But I think it's pretty cool.
I'm going to try that gingerbread.
Yeah, I recommend it. Okay, one thing we haven't really touched. Sorry, yeah, sure. See, where did that come from? It just bang, there it is. One thing we haven't really touched on explicitly, but it's an implication of everything we've been talking about, is there is no hierarchy of experience. There's no experience which is truer, there's no experience which is less true, there's no experience which is more spiritual, there's no experience which is less spiritual, there's no experience which is advantageous over any other experience. Which is not to say there might not seem to be preference. You might much prefer having pleasure over pain. For example, you might much prefer to be seeing beauty over having ugliness thrust in your face. Or maybe the other way around, who knows? But beauty is not better than ugliness because they're actually exactly the same thing. They're just more weird patterns appearing and they're in an instant they're gone. The most beautiful sunset is gone in an instant, never to return. The most horrible war or whatever, child molestation or I don't know, your personal version of horrible experience, is gone in an instant. It's just gone. Because all of these patterns that just appear and disappear. It's like watching the clouds in the sky. You've all sat and watched the clouds and sort of tripped on, oh, this looks like, Bishop Bardo, and that looks like a car, and that looks like a cloud, or, whatever. But they're just continually changing, never repeats. It always sort of suggests something. It looks kind of like this, it looks kind of like that, but never actually You can't ever pin down what it really looks like, and then it's gone and becomes something else. Right? That's experience. And so by all means, try to avoid pain and try to navigate to pleasure as much as skillfully as you can. But in terms of liberation, in terms of spirituality, that stuff just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Because the only thing that's liberating, the only thing that is actually spiritually empowering is to see what this is nakedly. It's irrespective if you're, a serial killer, or if you're like an absolute saint that spends all this time helping little old ladies across the street or whatever. If you're seeing what this is, you discover liberation. If you're not, you're lost in delusion. You may have the delusion that you're this wonderful person. Or more typically, you have delusion you're a horrible person full of self-loathing if you're a typical Western personality. But all of that is fiction. All of that is a phantasm, and it comes and goes and it doesn't do anything to you that matters. The only thing that is effective, the only thing that actually does anything is seeing reality, seeing what this is. Noticing the actuality of your presence. You may have noticed that I call this a yoga of radiant presence. The presence is this presence. The radiance is all this patterning. It's continually showing up. I refer to it as radiance because it unstoppably seems to be shining forth. It's unstoppably dynamically appearing and disappearing. And simply noticing that, noticing this presence and noticing this radiance, is what constitutes liberation. Not because of some magic spell or because of some theory. It just happens to be the case. That if you notice that that's what's happening here, you become free of thinking any of it matters. It's just like it's just like lucid dreaming. When you discover you're dreaming, you become free of worrying about what happens in the dream. Who cares if it's a nightmare or something? But if you're lost in the dreaming, then it really matters, right? If a monster's chasing you, it's a monster, and that sucks. You don't want that. Or if it's some saint that you're getting the darshan of, then that's like, oh, that's wonderful. I want more of that. I don't know what I'm going to do. But it's just a dream, and you see it's just a dream. It's like, oh, I mean, it was a nice dream or it was a shitty dream, but what a hoot! It's a dream. Who gives a shit? And likewise, all the suffering that we experience in our lives is not caused by experience. It's caused by misinterpreting experience as consisting of what we usually think it consists of. All these elements and all these people and all these situations that we're stuck in, and we're stuck with our personalities, and we're stuck with this and we're stuck with that. But that's just it's a narration. It's only exists on paper. The only thing that's actually here is the instantaneous radiant presence right here, right there.
What I've heard you say is that part of that, right here, right now, part of the texture, the sensation of it are the thoughts that come through. Thoughts and the emotions and all that's as much a part of it again.
Sure, whatever, anything. Anything that appears is it. And anything that appears is not what you think it is, and it's not what you're calling it either.
I've been of the thinking that I'm just not investing so much in my thinking. It's not as real as I would consider it to be.
Sure.
But I tend to live in a framework that says, well, the thoughts can seriously be not real, but this is real. And
well, it is real.
The light coming in the door is real.
It is real, but it's real light, and that's real touch. And light is touch is something that appears miraculously within the field of your experience.
What I hear you saying is not equally the thoughts and the...
There's only one real. There's no hierarchy. There's nothing that's more real and nothing that's less real. There's only one real, and that's this real.
What I'm noticing is I've been considering thoughts less real than the sensory.
They're just a different bandwidth. They're a different texture.
They seem to be more suspicious though, because they talk a lot about the past or the future. And
Well-
I really see that that's.
Well, here's the rub. Thoughts pretend to be about something. Thoughts pretend to be relational. Oh, I'm thinking of such and such. I'm describing such and such. I'm remembering such and such. So there's the thought, and then there's some such and such that it supposedly refers to, and theoretically we assert it refers to it with some accuracy. In actuality, that's the mistake. Thought doesn't refer to anything. When you think of thought, the only thing it refers to is the fact that you're thinking that thought. Just like when you see a color, the only thing that refers to is that you're seeing that color. It just happens to be occurring. Which is not to say that there can't be all sorts of astoundingly, synchronistic cross-connection of seeming meaningfulness and informational content and all that. But that's just an accident. It's not reliable. If thousands of thoughts about something, thought is about the fact that you're thinking. Oh, I'm thinking about yesterday. I'm thinking about what a chair's made out of. I'm thinking about, what I like to do. Bullshit. That's all spin doctrine. It's entirely spin doctrine. I'm thinking there's no about. I'm thinking.
Take it at face value.
Take it at the instantaneous event.
That's it.
Yeah. Which is not divorced from all other instantaneous events. The entire field is present as a unit, as a whole, let's say, right? So all experience is present now. Bang. Right? But none of it has any prevalence, and none of it is about any of the others of it. It all is about the radiance. It's all about the shining forth. It's like the relationship between the characters in the movie is not about the relationship between the characters in the movie. It's about the light shining on the screen from the projector. That's all it's about.
We're so sure it's all threaded around us.
Well, it is threaded around you, but you're not you. You are you. Yeah, you're the projector. Your human persona and your human body is just another apparition. Just like your body is no more genuine than my body in your experience. Your experiencing is what's genuine, and your body is just a pattern that appears from time to time. It disappears every time you go to sleep. It disappears from your field of vision every time you close your eyes. But you go in general anesthesia and the whole thing's gone. The experience doesn't stop. That's you. What you are in general when you're under general anesthesia is you. Everything that appears is just a symptom of that, a gratuitous apparition, like a shadow, an echo. So you don't identify yourself with some partiality that appears within your sensorium. You are the whole thing. You are what's seeing it all, you are what's doing it all. The movie analogy isn't perfect because in the movie you have the projector and then you have the audience. And the projector creates and the audience perceives. In actuality, the projector is the audience. What projects it and what perceives it is one and the same. A dream is a better analogy there. Because in a dream it's fairly clear, in some unclear way, that what is dreaming it and what is seeing it are one and the same. And of course right here it's exactly the same. We make the assumption out of an ignorant humility that we can't be the projector. I'm just this little guy sitting here, and some great inconceivable force is doing all this. Yeah, some great inconceivable force is doing all this, and if I go looking for me, I can't find anything other than that. Because everything else I just find is symptoms of that inconceivable force. So clearly, I am that. Or in your case, you are that. You live in your own universe, so I don't even know if you exist. That's your problem. You don't know if I exist, so that's fair enough. Yes.
But I like being a little character.
Well, you get that. You get your shake and eat it. You don't have to not be that. And you don't have to find liberation either. You know, it's there. It's this loophole that's in the fine print that you can take advantage of, and no one's standing there with a gun to your head saying you have to. If you're not inclined to it, that's absolutely fine. Most people aren't, so you're in good company. But it is an opportunity, and also it's not an exclusive thing. You know, seeing what reality is does not erase the human persona, does not erase your life. On the contrary, you may find it empowers you to be a little more free and easy and enjoying of it all, because you're less weighed down with all sorts of angst and stuff, supposing that it really matters and it's urgent, and you're all tense about the importance of it all.
Yeah. Along the same lines, I saw this movie, you should see it, it's playing here in Centerville, called Wild Tales and Six Tales of Revenge. And it sounds weird, but the last one is this wedding. This woman finds out that her husband had been screwing this woman from work that he invited to the wedding. And her new husband. And she kind of lets, I mean, it's a very kind of conventional, and they're doing all those things you do in weddings, and she just kind of lets go of all her censors. Just and there's this part of me, I don't really want to go and do vengeful things, but there's part of me that wishes I didn't have this censor in me saying, oh, you can't do that, and that's really weird. And, you know, I just kind of enjoyed watching this woman totally indulge her crazy. You know, just run around like a crazy person, you know. And I think that I have more of that. The more I reach seeing things as relatively real, I guess.
You know, but it's all, you know, it's a mistake to suppose, oh, if I look at this and discover what it is, then X is going to happen or Y is going to happen. All of a sudden, I'm going to be a wild person dancing down the street giggling naked. Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe you'll be the same conservative person you are, if you are that, or whatever. Right? So it's a mistake to prognosticate or to suppose that there's any implications of this. Because the patterning does what it does. It's just patterning. And seeing what this is, you don't gain anything new. You just discover that you are not subject to this. It is subject to you. You are not stuck in this. It is appearing in you. And so you discover you're upstream of it. You're not dependent upon what appears. What appears is dependent upon you. You give it existence. It doesn't give you existence. And when you discover that, you discover what has always been the case. So it's not really a new condition. It's not like, oh, I'm not me anymore. You never were me. I never was me, but I discovered that's the case, but that doesn't change me at all. I'm as much me as I ever was, which I never was, but me is still appears as an apparition in the way that it does, which I've never been doing deliberately anyway, and that continues to be the case. So the point of all this is not about that something special happens. The point of this is that this discovery is the absolute height of what's possible for what we are, and is beautiful and exquisite and empowering in ways that are absolutely inexpressible. But at the same time, it doesn't change anything because it's not a new condition. It's just actually just noticing what has always been the case.
I think that, you know, along the lines when I was watching that film, there was this part of me that was just like, well, I have those thoughts. I'd like to do that. I could do this, and I could behave like that. And it's like those things are always popping up in my head. And it's like, you know, it's like I'm on some level, always censoring it to a level where it's comfortable and invisible most of the time. But nonetheless, there was something that when I was watching that, I was like, wow, I could imagine myself doing all those things, and yet I don't do all those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's it can't be said precisely, but the energy system that you are will tend to be the energy system that it is until and unless it becomes different. And it's continually becoming different. And it usually doesn't become drastically different until and unless it does.
Right.
So in short, all bets are off.
Right.
But don't necessarily expect that, oh, I get what this is. All of a sudden I'm going to fly and I'm going to be the president of the United States and I'm going to be a rock star and I'm going to, maybe you'll just go home and cook dinner and watch TV and go to bed. Because that's what limitless transcendental radiance looks like too. You know? Because one thing you certainly discover when you discover what this is you don't gain anything by any particular thing. So it doesn't matter. You don't need to do all this spectacular special stuff because it doesn't mean anything. It's nothing. It's like in a dream. You know, you can have a dream where you're just muddling around, putzing around in the afternoon. You can have a dream where you're climbing mountains and flying and meeting deities. And it's just a dream. One isn't better than the other. It's just different ways that the patterns can appear. You know, and when you really get that, it's like, hey, whatever.
Most of us are waking life chauvinists, so we think if we're not doing it in our regular life, then it's like not, oh yeah, that was just a dream.
Yeah, sure.
But this is like somehow I just had this like feeling like where it was crossing over into like, I can't explain what happened, but somehow it was like that movie's kind of profound to me.
Huh? Well, I mean, this is another aspect of all this. This presents as if it was imbued with and consisted of an inconceivable intelligence. The astounding, interconnection of circumstance, the astounding interrelationship of apparent functionality, the laws of physics, communication, discovery, invention. I mean, all of these astounding sort of the patterns aren't just stupid, blobs of color that are flashing on some screen like a kindergartner might make. There's these inconceivably intricate, interrelated, functional presentations of just amazing structures and functionalities, which doesn't mean anything, but it seems to be in the nature of what this is, that it's like that's included as an aspect of what this is. And this is fascinating, and there's obviously endless room for exploring this aspect of things, and we take advantage of it all the time. I mean, we all experience, the refinements of communication, the refinements of elevated thought, the refinements of discovery, all these kinds of things, which don't actually exist in themselves. They're just sort of harmonics of the nature of the patterns, because these patterns seem to embody that aspect of harmonics, embodying all the seeming meaningfulness and the seeming profundity of information and cross correlation and so on, functionality. And it's strange that it should be so, but it's observable that it seems to be. Because since everything's unresolvable, you can't say for sure either that it is like that or what that is, but that's a constant in the equation. Yeah.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, things seem to show up like in synchronicity and coincidence. So
Yes.
somehow in my universe, okay, I associate spirituality with like the Tibetans and there's this mandala, and so that's showing up in my,
This must be a very spiritual play.
So like that shows up in my psyche, or a scary place maybe to be, like wherever. And so that seems like a coincidence, or I could label it that.
Sure. But essentially everything is coincidence. But the fact that everything is coincidence, but it's not just stupid dullness, mud. It's coincidence, and it's all these astounding life forms and incredible weather patterns and solar systems and galaxies and the laws of physics and life forms. And I mean, Jesus, this is some serious patterning going on. It's not just sort of random and occasional flash of something or other. It's like, whoa! I mean, the patterning and the amount of apparent structure and detail in the patterning is astounding, and it's all synchronicity. It's like a movie is incredibly synchronistically patterned. Nothing's happening in the movie, but you watch the people running across the screen and driving cars and flying planes and fighting monsters and beaming from here to there, and it's just an astounding presentation of structure and function that where there's no structure and function happening. It's just flashes of light on a screen, but it presents itself as if it was that. And this is like that, only even more so. So all that's really happening here is these instantaneous flashes of light, essentially. And yet, look at how intricate it seems to present itself. I mean, these patterns aren't just patterns; they're hyper, microstructural patterns. Look at the life form. Look at the body. Look at cells. Look at this astounding functional structure that
I
goes
just look at
on.
my cat, look at all the hairs in my cat. Every
Yeah.
time it's amazing.
Sure, all those hairs just showing up. There they all are, all over the sofa. No, but this is a very interesting aspect of all. And of course, as humans, as supposed humans, we're all very used to being snowed by all this. It's like, well, all this structure means that the universe is this great, amazing, powerful place, and then, which is just more evidence of our own insignificance and us being dependent upon this. But which again is asked backwards in the fact that we're actually what's doing all this. We're actually what's doing all that inconceivable structure. We're actually what's doing all that inconceivable cross connection of all of these, infinitely fractal details of all this pattern.
But are any of those things that we talked about or referred to, like the planets and other universes and all that, are any of those really even real? If
No.
they're not real
Well,
experiences
No,
like that.
they're all real, but they aren't that. All our descriptions are descriptions of actuality, but the actuality does not exist corresponding with the way we describe it. Think of a movie. You could describe, I saw Indiana Jones and he met the girl and he went through in the plane and fought the Nazis. But there was no Indiana Jones, there was no girl, there was no plane, there was no Nazis. There was flashes of light on the screen. And yet, it was real. It was that. It just wasn't. That description is a heavy-handedly inaccurate way of saying what actually happened. And our descriptions are the same way. So I can say, you and I are sitting here in this room, in San Rafael in California, on Earth, having a conversation. And that's as true as saying Indiana Jones got on a plane. And what's really happening is not that. But it's not. That doesn't negate us sitting here having this conversation. But us sitting here isn't us. It isn't sitting here, and it isn't having a conversation. But it doesn't negate the event. But that way of referring to it is just grossly inaccurate. What's really happening is a virtual fractal presentation of infinity presenting as a virtual readout of infinite flashes of
It
light.
just can't be simplified that
Huh?
much. It can't be simplified that much to say it's this.
No. That's what I mean by unresolvable. Unresolvable means you can't collapse it down to something to some final condition, some final simple condition that it is, or even some final complex condition. But when you look at it, all you have is it. And you try and get a handle on it and see what it is, which basically means trying to collapse it down to something else, and you can't. It's just it. It is itself, and it is itself in the way that it is that. And you can't get any more, you can't break it down from that. It is this. It is precisely this, and exactly the way this is this. And if you want to see how this is this, then look at the fact of experiencing. That's the closest you're going to get to really finding, being intimately with the mechanism of it. But analyzing it and describing it just gets you balled up in farther and farther in inaccuracy. But like the kind of exercise we just did, half hour ago, is a better way to. It's all about look at what experiencing is. What is experiencing? And we're all intimately familiar with experiencing, obviously, because we don't know anything else. But we're so used to looking at what seems to be happening in experience, and we don't spend much of our attention on experiencing itself. We just take that for granted. Experiencing is just some window we're looking through, and we're really interested in what's showing up in the window, but we don't give a shit about the window, as long as it doesn't get muddy or whatever. But actually, the window is what's happening. There's nothing showing up in it. The window is more of a self-generating TV set than it is a window onto something else that's happening that's interesting. And so check out the window. Check out the actuality of experiencing in real time. You're not conceptually by thinking about it or analyzing it. Check it out by feeling it. Feeling, it's, as humans, we're used to thinking of feeling as a lower sense or a lesser kind of engagement. Well, yeah, I feel it, but let me think about it. It's the opposite. Feeling is what experience really is. Feeling is the highest exercise of consciousness and intelligence. So when you feel, you are non-linearly, multifacetedly engaging in infinite engagement. And that's all experience really is. Experience feels itself. All of our verbs for experiencing, like see or hear or think or feel, are euphemisms for feel. Experience is experienced by tactile engagement. So that's the best way to explore it. And of course, it's not rational, so you won't get rational answers. But this isn't rational either. This isn't rational. Anyone thought this is rational is like really gullible. This makes absolutely no sense. What's going on here? What's present? It's completely irrational. And fundamentally, you are this, so you have access to this being itself in the way that it is itself, because you are it. It's not like you're at some remove trying to explore something that's over there. You are it. You have all access pass. You're completely immersed in it in the way that it is what it is. You are that. So you have complete, you're capable, your nature and your capabilities are up to assimilating the nature of what this is, because you are it. It is you. So you have its nature and it has your nature, so you can actually meet it. You don't need to translate it into some intermediate terms or language or something. Let me take a 5-minute break. Get some tea, have a pee, stretch, whatever.
Are you baiting people with what you Oh, yeah, I asked him, I said, yeah, great. But my question is, so on my iPad, I don't know what it's called, it said, oh, you just couldn't use it. Yeah, but where, I would have subscribed. Yeah. Well, it wasn't, I found Peter Brown and it was a couple of older things, nothing else. Well, is there a different app? And what is the title of the?
I'm sorry?
Well,
Oh, no, thank you.
Retreat or something. Oh, after lunch sometimes. But my question is, so there, I didn't see your friends were, said live chat, but I tried to send something. Oh, for the chat line, and it wouldn't work. Well, maybe the chat line isn't working, because he mentioned sometime earlier that, he was telling Jeff, that the chat line part of the app is making it crash. Well, okay. So maybe that's why. Like, we can't converse with one another, but that's the problem. Yeah, so, because I sent Jeff a text, and he said, oh, it's coming out brilliant. He's very happy about that, it coming through. So it's called Santa Fe Retreat or something? I tried looking for it, I couldn't find it, so where's it? New chat, right there. All right.
I've never used
Go up
it.
here,
This is one.
scroll, go to your whoops. Okay. My subscription. Unless it's a new channel that just put up there. No, I don't think so. I just went to my. Oh, Santa Fe, right there.
More complex.
Okay. Thank you. I think that would be under my subscription, so that would just find it. I'm just saying, we got it's technological shit. Just getting here. I also, oh, there we go. Now. Oh, no, it's just, yeah, it's just not. Good. Thanks, Pam. It's fine.
Yeah, please.
Yes, ma'am. What's up? Oh, it's icy cold in there right now. It's 40 or something. So we don't turn on the water heat. So something in the summer when the temperature is nice. So. Anyway. Maybe. The thing is that it's really cold right now. You wouldn't want to swim in it now. So, I'll let you know in the summer if I turn on the heat. It's been getting warm enough that I've been thinking I would contemplate starting to put on the heater. Because we don't use it very much. It's an expense. And it evaporates the water faster too. Sure. So, hope this is good. The pool, are you good? Isn't it? They don't need it. Yeah. You would like that soup?
Get your tea. You said here, next door?
Tea is, no, right out front. The counter right across the way there, with the cash register is. The Just ask them if it's chai, and they'll have it. It's right to the left there. Yeah, they have a tea in there too, but it's different. This one's a good one.
This one is good.
Yeah.
Swimming at night.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I should have been clear.
My southern.
Yeah.
Because it's always been, well, it gets chilly and sometimes foggy.
But if you'd like, I recommend trying some of the one over there because it's very unique.
I would say the best bet for you is just, unless you want to swim outside, but even outside, there's a couple of clubs that have both an indoor and outdoor pool, like the JCC in, what's the other side of the They have a heated indoor pool and a heated outdoor pool, and they're open till 9, 10 at night. So if you got a membership there, you could definitely swim there. Hawaii only has an indoor pool. Oh, you prefer an indoor pool? Well, I think it would go. Well, there's probably something closer to you than because, let's see, who else? There's a couple of clubs. Isn't there a club near the general that has a swimming pool? It's not just a gym, but it has a swimming pool. There's gotta be something closer to you. Also something that was, the JCC, I mentioned mostly because they have both indoor and outdoor, and they keep them. So, both. Raspberry? Yeah. What is it?
Need to dim the lights out there or something. Ring a bell. Bing, 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 bing.
It's a PA.
Well, why don't we start back in? People will come in as they do. Rather than just sitting listening to this, I strongly recommend you talk to me about what it is for you and what you're experiencing, because it can be easy to just sort of be passive and receiving all this stuff. Yes.
When we were doing whatever we were doing when we got back together the first time,
Uh-huh.
I had a very difficult time, especially with visual, in not having, I don't know, about the experience, the idea that something that it's constant, you know, the dissolving in the moment. I'm not getting that, or that it's different in each
Okay. Sure. What's different is the exact configuration of what you're seeing. Here, watch my hand. Okay.
Well, now, if there's something,
There's when this finger gets to this finger, watch it. How long is that? How long are these fingers lined up like that?
right.
Virtually zero time. It's approaching, it's approaching, it's leaving, it's leaving, it's leaving, it's leaving. It's approaching, it's approaching, it's approaching, it's leaving, it's leaving. So it's actually here for zero duration, because as soon as it gets there, it's already leaving.
Right.
And everything you see is just like that, right?
I was playing with things that have some movement. So I was looking around and I was looking at this mobile and I was looking at, you know, the fan and the fans and things that can move and things.
Right.
But when I move to something that is solid, it seems like a constant to me.
Well, it's constant if you don't look closely. Look, you can look at the real details, the real finds, every little point of light, every little flash of light.
The only thing that wasn't constant is that when I look, there are patterns that are kind of in my field of vision.
Right.
That are shifting.
Yeah. And that's the experience. It's not about this is shifting, but that's not. There's no this and that. It's all a unified field. See what I mean? In other words, if you could take an exact snapshot of what your consciousness experiences in any instant in your visual field, it would not match the snapshot you take of an exact instant at any other moment in your life. Period. Have you ever done the experiment that I'm sure you've heard me suggest it many times, where you look at a blank wall for 10
Oh,
minutes?
yeah.
Well, when you look at the blank wall, I mean, what happens? It's not like the wall's just sitting there. After a while, you know, it looks like you're watching a light show or something. Right?
And I think that was similar to what I was talking about, the patterns like that.
Yeah, but everything is like that. Everything. I mean, you can look at a chair, and it's like looking at the blank wall. You're actually, I mean, there's sort of a gross outline which seems to be not changing very much. But on the other hand, if I look at it very closely, it's just all dancing and flickering and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's subtle, it's fine. There's a lot, you know. I mean, it's gross and subtle, but what it always is absolutely inconstant. And just think of over the course of your life, you know, like what you're seeing right now, you've never seen before. Period. You know, if you imagine walking through your life with a Polaroid and just taking a picture every second, you know, you'd end up with, you know, a bazillion Polaroids, every one of which was different from every other one of which. You know, some of them grossly obviously and some of them subtly. But a little bit different is totally different. It's not like a little bit different is almost the same. Almost the same is a euphemism for entirely different. Yeah. What I'm seeing now is almost the same as what I was seeing 5 minutes ago. Yeah. Which is a euphemism for is entirely different from 5 minutes ago. And this is exactly how we confuse ourselves, by skimming over the actuality of the divergence to get a general sameness, a general consistency, right? What I'm seeing now is pretty much what I was seeing 5 minutes ago, and it's pretty much what I was seeing 3 hours ago, right? Let's be honest here. But that is a lie, because what I'm actually seeing is different than what I was seeing 3 hours ago, and it's different than what I was seeing 5 minutes ago. And the actuality is what's powerful. This is the important point. It's the actuality that's powerful. Glossing over it to create simplified versions is not powerful and is emasculating. You cut yourself off from the power of actuality. Actuality is where all power lies. And actuality is absolutely dynamic and absolute. And so the trick is to just let yourself notice that. And the degree to which we don't notice it is the degree to which we're applying our bag of tricks of turning it the same, which feels normal because we've been doing it all our lives.
Yeah, it feels like some sort of relief or something that's so.
But you can kind of train. A good way to train is just looking at the blank wall with the light or something, that kind of thing, just to sensitize yourself to the ways in which it is dynamic. Because much of those ways is subtle. But then once you're sensitized to the subtle ways in which it's always dancing around, when you look at the gross stuff, you'll notice it's actually the same way too.
Yeah, I got all of this complexity of the views, I was looking up here, and then when I was looking at it, then of course all of my pattern and things, but I somehow got this, that's, what's behind this being constant, this is kind of,
Right.
I don't know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just bizarre.
No, for sure. But the thing is, even when all of those overlays are going on, conceptually, the raw experience is also there, and they don't actually step on each other's toes, right? Because the interpretations is sort of existing up here in a relatively mental mode, and the raw sensory field is present in an immediate energy presence mode, and they don't actually, even though we're used to sort of smearing them together and assuming they're one and the same, it's not actually like that. And so by training, by really playing with it, you can notice that. The trick is to play with it, and there's endless room for confusion because, of course, we're existing in a kind of experiential multimedia barrage where thought is always happening and belief is always happening and emotion is always happening, and we're used to being jerked around and distracted by things and used to smearing them together. So the kind of exercise we did a little while ago, where you kind of deconstruct it, and be with the visual field as a visual field, and look at the mental field and look at how they coexist, but don't actually get in each other's way. Vision happens in vision, and thought happens in thought, and they don't actually interfere with each other. They're happening in different bandwidths or whatever. And the same, and so by kind of a careful sort of exploration or training in that kind of a way of exploring it, you can play with it and come to sort of disentangle that knee-jerk reaction of sort of lumping it all together. And because I get it. We're also brainwashed in this mode of, well, this is a room and these are pictures and we are people. What are you talking about? Are you nuts? But it happens to be that in actuality it's not like that, and it is in fact possible to see directly that it's not like that, and doing so is very powerful. So it's just a matter of playing with it till you kind of find the knot. How about anyone else? So we've been talking about this stuff all day today. What's going on with you? How's it strike you? What does it make sense to you? Are you with it, or is it like what about this aspect of it? What about that aspect of it?
It doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, good.
I just don't like saying it.
Doesn't make sense to me either.
Yeah. I think what you were just saying there, I was thinking about it when I was in the room, does it require a kind of personality that has a quality of discipline that would be trained to this kind of deconstructive atomization experience? What if you're, not disciplined? Can you work with it?
Absolutely.
Or is it an entrainment? Because it seems like it's not.
I don't think so. I think it's a matter of sensitivity, and I think sensitivity can be cultivated within any sort of a milieu or any sort of a bias. I mean, the way I put it may tend to seem to be sort of formalized and deconstructed, or I don't know, however you would characterize it.
Yeah.
But even if you approach things from a very different flavor, a very different sort of a mode, you can still discover sensitivity within that, which will reveal exactly the same thing, because the point is that what this is what it is, and it's obvious what it is. And the point is to notice that, not that you have to notice it this way. This might be one way that might or might not, facilitate that. But I think that anyway, the point is to find what works for you, because it has to be genuine for you, right? It has to be a reality in your experience. So you have to come to it directly in your own way.
Yeah, because I sometimes look at it as just, well, they were just doing it kind of energetic something or other that doesn't have a lot of other qualities to it. But what I tend to do, I just go into my experience. I call it like this little light. Just go like the thing that's the most obvious thing. I go into my experience. Like just coming here today, like walking here. You know, whatever I'm experiencing, it's fine. You know, I'm not going to get into
That's it.
seeking something. And I had a kind of, you know, not a very subtle experience. It's like heavy and tired. But you know, it's cool. You know,
Absolutely.
stick with that, and that seems like
Absolutely.
that's right on.
Absolutely. It's all about what's actual. It's not about making something into something else.
Yeah.
It's all about whatever is, however it is, that's what it is. And don't try to,
customize it for yourself, so to speak.
Yeah. You find it where you find it right where you are. You find it right where you find it, just the way things seem to be. That's it. That's the doorway to this amazingness. You know, because that's what it really is.
Yeah, for me, lots of times when you're talking, just over time, it's you're saying one thing, and it's not that I'm not listening, but I always hear it a different way.
No, totally.
It's just how it is.
Well, it's not. It's
You know
not.
what I'm saying?
It's totally. It's not about what we're saying. It's not about the words or the ideas. It's about this is transcendental by its very nature. I am this. I am transcendental. You are this. You are transcendental. So the transcendental can resonate with the transcendental directly, even if it's speaking gibberish to itself. It's not like it needs to make sense or it needs to be communicated. Or,
Especially.
yeah, it's like a flavor. It's like a milieu. It's like a mood. You know, it's like whatever. You know, but the point is, it's actual and it's powerful and it's available. And you know that's it right there. And it's right here. So drink deeply. Any way you can. Any way you do.
I think I'm still in the process. Still some degree of translating what you're saying.
Well, sure. Well, that can be fun too. I mean, you know, I'm just making this shit up. You know, what this actually is cannot be talked about. It cannot be said. So everything I'm saying is basically bullshit. It's not actually accurate. It's not actually like that. At best, it's evocative or suggestive or disruptive or destabilizing. But it's not like it's true. And oh, I need to follow and find out what that really means so I can make sense of it. It's it's more like a poetry recital than it is like a a logic lecture or something. Because what this is cannot be said. So sitting here talking about it is obviously absurd. So we're already in the theater of the absurd. No, I mean, wow, talking about absurdity, Jesus. Performance on that. These people are whack. Yes.
So Peter, my experience of what you're pointing to seems to be like just a very subtle, all-pervasive something. And there's a real specific, lovely flavor to it.
Sure.
And from what I can tell, it gets more vivid when I'm with someone like yourself or other people that I'm excited. What about that?
What's up with that?
Yeah.
What's up with that? What is that shit?
I know it's good.
I don't ask me. Don't ask me. I mean, it's weird. It's weird. So everything about this is weird, and approaching it is weird, and finding it is weird, and sort of feeling it stronger or weaker is weird, and the whole thing, none of it makes any sense, and it's just this crazy weird dance that if you find yourself doing it or engaged in it or motivated to be with that, then you do that and you sort of learn how to do it by doing it. It never makes any sense. Beginning, middle, or end, it doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, no answer to that. You learn how to do it by learning how to do it. And it is, one thing you said is it's very subtle. That's true. It's very subtle, but it's also very, very gross and very obvious. I mean, literally, this, you know, you can say, oh, presence is subtle. Yeah, presence is subtle, but presence is completely. I mean, all this is present, and that presence is it's as coarse as it can be. It's as gross as it can be. It's the most substantial thing there is this transcendental presence. And it's absolutely transcendental, not in some weird poetical, metaphorical way, but it is that. It's made of that. I mean, how can presence happen? We totally take it for granted because we experience it all every instant of our lives. And so we think of it as, well, just, of course this is present. How could it not be present? But take a minute and look at what presence is. And it's the weirdest fucking thing. I mean, it's inconceivable. And yet it's real. I mean, how can reality be real? I mean, it completely blows my mind. It completely blows my mind. So, yeah, it is very subtle. It is delightful in its flavor. But it's also really gross and coarse and obvious and in your face when you notice it. Although you may initially notice it, begin to appreciate it in the subtle aspects, and then sort of open more and more to how heavy-handed and explicit it is. But whatever. Just be with it however you can, and follow any way you can find to follow it when you feel that little tingle or whatever. Just follow that, and it will grow, and it will expand and become more comprehensive, and eventually subsume everything. Because it does. It is everything. But the way, there is no way to do this. There's no technique. I mean, all of this. We talk a lot about tricks of exploring your experience in these various ways and blah blah blah. But that's all basically just bullshit. You just stumble onto it wherever you can, and then if you have any wit or sensitivity, you're just open to more of that, and it leads you. It's like the Pied Piper, it draws you in. Ultimately, this stuff seduces you. Ultimately, you're just relinquishing to like a symphony. It's just like, oh, this is so yummy. I want more, and you just get, sort of become like a opium addict or something. And then it does the work because you're just being sucked in. It's all about getting that initial contact, and then learning how to get a little bit more, and then whoops, then then it takes care of itself.
It seems to me that each of us have this status, and thus whatever you're saying is ancillary in a way to our own process. So we have to take it in like that.
I'm not quite sure I follow you.
I have whatever process is going on with me,
Right.
understanding.
Right.
Somehow what you're saying is the word ancillary. In other words, it's the Dharma's happening right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't even, it's going to show up however it shows up.
Right. Yeah.
And in your life,
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. I mean, that's basically it. I mean, I throw all this stuff out on the hopes that anything sticks occasionally to anyone. Because you're all unique. You're all unique. You're all unique in your modes of approaching things. You're all unique in your histories. You're all unique in your mindsets. You're all unique in your talents and abilities and your basic orientation to things. So everyone's unique. Everyone has a sort of a different skill set and a different take or a different point of orientation. So, what is going to click for you is unique to you. And so I'm sitting up here, and here I am, like, okay, I'm with this group of people. How could I possibly present something that's going to click with everybody? Well, I can't. So I just toss out all this shit, it's just sort of like a random shotgun fire, and the hopes that something sometime at some point was going to actually click.
And everyone has their own school of spirituality.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And what works for one person is one person does some little thing is going to be like, oh, wow, that's great. God, I really get that. And another person is like, huh? And then something else is going to fit for you. So you have to sort of find your own way.
So, yeah, that's what I was sort of talking about earlier this morning, and then you just sort of reaffirmed that when you said, there's no hierarchy. And so there is a certain randomness to what is going to catch, well, I was going to say catch my attention, but that's not exactly what happened. But, because it can just be the most inconceivable, silly thing.
Oh, absolutely.
That would just sort of,
Because there's no hierarchy. There's nothing that's truer than anything else, or anything that's more spiritual than anything else, or anything that. It's just a matter of taking any one thing and just tripping on it. And you don't really have a choice on what's going to do it for you. So if you get just something in your experience and it has a wow factor, and all of a sudden that wow factor becomes your magic carpet that just takes you away. Yeah, open doorway. I'm afraid. Is it? Really fucking important? Actually, a little water too, if you
once you
wouldn't mind.
can't go on, it's like going to the gas station.
Thank you, a little
All right, I'll
water.
fill you up.
Thank you kindly.
You want an extra sugar?
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Stevia?
Talk to me.
And stevia, azúcar?
Nice.
¿Cuál? I know what you want.
She likes to give me a hard time.
No,
I don't know why.
Your own
I'm
good.
such a sweet guy.
Your own good.
Just be married.
Wonderful.
It's for your own good. Thank God.
I'm having, I'm working with a statement you made earlier about others, like I'm the only one,
Uh-huh.
and other doesn't exist, and I don't get that. I mean, it doesn't show up in my experience at all.
Okay.
It's that way.
Okay. Well, how many perceivers of your experience are there?
Well, there's me.
Right. Is there anyone else perceiving your experience?
Well, not unless there's someone I'm in communication with about such thing. If I'm in communication with someone, there is the possibility, at least from my experience, of shared experience.
But is it really a shared experience, or is
I
it at
can't
best
say.
a parallel? Yeah, you can't say because that's
It
just
appears so. It
Oh.
appears to be distinctly different from what I would call my own experience, my normal own solo aloneness experience.
well.
So
You're talking to me, but my answering back is appearing in your experience,
yeah,
and the apparent degree of me being responsive to you in any way is also appearing in your experience.
right.
It may or may not actually exist out here, and it may or may not actually be existing in my experience. But as far as
Well,
you
there may or
know,
may not be any you. or
Exactly.
any experience
well,
you.
this is what we're talking about. It's right there.
Okay. But I have had experiences where there's a volitional, let's say, intention to communicate
Right.
or share experience.
Sure.
Whereas maybe, we're maybe not doing that, maybe we could, in which case you're communicating your experience to me as your experience.
Well, it looks like that from your point of view, and it may look like that from my point of view, but my point of view will never be your point of view.
Doesn't appear so. I can't say
Well,
definitively.
but there's nothing but appearance. We have to go. Appearance is empirical reality.
Right, but I'm not going to draw a conclusion about that.
Well, the conclusion.
I've been in the presence of people who seem to be able to read my mind or
Sure.
respond to my. I work with Taiji and some guys that pretty miraculous dudes and can kind of
Sure.
move where I'm going to move before I move there.
Sure. But
They're
even
tuned in
even
to
when that appears in your experience.
Yes, all things for me appear in my.
Yes. That's all. Just that simple fact. And then the apparent synchronicity of it, and the apparent interactivity of it, and the apparent profundity of apparent interaction still appears in your experience.
Yeah.
For you. And that's all. That's just a simple fact. And the same thing might happen in a dream, for example. You might have a very profound interrelationship with someone else in a dream, but there's all sorts of apparent psychic interchange and, profundity and intimacy of engagement and so on. And then when you wake up, you say, well, gee, as far as I'm aware, there wasn't anyone else there. It was just a dream. And wherever dream images come from, that's where all that stuff came from. And so,
But you seem to be subjecting the dream experience to the same criteria for is it real or not as reality, as like a waking. I'm a little confused as to how to say it. You seem to be writing off the dream experience as it's not real.
no, I'm
Because
not.
it's just a dream.
I know it's absolutely
as real
real.
as-
It's a real
It's
dream.
as real as-
But a dream is clearly subjective experience. And this experience is exactly the same as far as you can tell.
I'm working on that as far as I can tell.
Well, how would you, you would have to leave your experience to get some kind of outside validation. How would you do that?
I don't know yet.
You're working on it.
I don't know. I mean, one thing that's very interesting that you say, and I enjoy like just having the thought kind of in the same place as me is there's nothing outside the experience.
Right.
Experience is
Sure.
I'm questioning that, but it seems true.
Well,
It seems like
there may or may not be something outside of experience, but you couldn't know.
well, unless there was something other
Yeah.
than maybe, but
And but if there was, you can't know unless you experienced it. Experience.
yes.
The word experience
Given
and the
what-
word you are an equality, are coterminous. They're the same thing.
Yeah, the way you're using experience, it's kind of an absolute. It's the absolute boundary of whatever is. So
Yeah, yeah. But and even calling it a boundary implies that there's something that's not so, which is gibberish. There is.
well, it's not understandable, but
Right.
there's a whole bunch of stuff that's not understandable.
Well, nothing's understandable.
Exactly.
But
It's not
actually,
an argument, in other words.
no, for sure. But you know, that's why I like to stick with actuality. Actuality to me is a very nice notion. Reality is a little more of an abstraction. Reality is by implication with regard to some non-reality or some degrees of reality. What does that even mean? But actuality is immediate. It's palpable. It's what is cognized, and it's intuitively. It's not based on a logical assertion or something. It's a simple empirical fact. Actual. Here it is. This is that it is actual. And if you start from that, in other words, basically all I'm trying to present is assume everything you've ever been told or been trained in or learned or read or thought is suspect. Not that it's wrong, just that it's suspect. Just that you don't know for a fact that it's right. And so basically you're reinventing the wheel. It's like, let me go back to root principles and see what can I know for sure. You know, what is undeniable, what is unassailable. And
That's good.
the presence of action, what I get to is basically what I presented at the beginning of today. There is presence, or you could say there is actuality. And without worrying too much by what that means, it's immediately obvious and palpable. And actuality tends to present, well, I don't need to reiterate the whole thing, but it tends to present as all this apparent infinite degree of patterning, and all of which is unresolvable. And all of this is just empirically, obvious.
In walking down the empirical road, there does appear to me to be others that are not here. I have this volition, and I'm doing
you
it.
said they
Certainly,
appear to you.
They appear in my experience
Right,
as other.
right, but
I'm seeing
the as other is an interpretation. It's like it's a meta layer. First they appear in your experience, and then having appeared in your experience, you can assess whether they're other or not.
Yes, this is true.
I mean, in one sense, everything that appears in experience is other. My hand appears in experience, and you appear in experience. In my visual field, the hand and you have the same degree of otherness. I could say, well, if self is what's seeing the visual field, then other is everything that appears in the visual field. But that becomes an abstraction, because if I look closely experientially, I can't find an actual discontinuity between the observing and the observed are one thing. It's not like there's an observer over here and the observed is over here, even though one might imagine that to be the case. Experientially, there is just observing, and the observed, so-called, is part and parcel of the observing. And everything that is observed seems to be observed with the same degree of being observed. Let's say my hand and your body and my visual field have the same degree of presence. You know, the vision of you and the presence of thought in my consciousness have the same degree of presence. So the presence seems to be pretty much homogeneous, but there's all this infinite degree of patterning, infinite degree of textures and then relative densities and what have you. Anyway, none of which is actually provable or resolvable.
But it's fun to play with.
Oh, absolutely. But the point is, I'm arguing that it all is essentially a continuity, or no hard discontinuities can be found. So you can't isolate separate elements. Yeah, it's seamless. It's this seamless of presence and patterning is this seamless, essentially whole. It's an infinite whole. It's a whole without edges or boundaries or walls. And here it is. And isn't that interesting? And there's nothing else that I can find. Because if there was something else, it would be in this, in the same seamless presence.
Yeah, I was contemplating the nature of experience at one point, and I happened to be down at Stanford and saw the Rodin statues, and someone gave me a book or something, and he was talking about the one surface. And I turned that into the experience. It was like the surface of experience is all I get. There's nothing behind it.
Sure.
It's all one surface. There's no way I can get behind it or through it.
Sure. That's what I mean by the patterning. The patterning is that one surface, and it's infinitely detailed. You can find as much detail as you care to look for.
Yes.
And you can find as much.
And you can look further and find more.
And you can find as much instability as you care to look for. You can find as much inconstancy as you care to look for. But it never departs from this seamless whole, essentially.
That never departing really is an interesting thing.
Yeah.
It is what it is what it's appearing, and it's also never changing from what it is.
Yeah. I mean, that's just kind of my simplistic formula of what this is, or what radiant presence is. It can appear as anything, but it never departs from itself. It's always just this,
And more
but it can look like anything. And more another is just a way of exploring the unresolvability, the infinite detail, let's call it. So whatever you find, there is more than that, and there is other than that, in terms of patterning. But it never departs from itself, so it never becomes more than that, never becomes other than that. So this is just exactly integrally what it is, while being apparently infinitely differentiated, without even departing from itself. How weird is that?
keep staying with it. That's
Yeah. I mean, that to me is the absolute, spinal cord
At some
of
point,
this
I can feel my
investigation.
mind going,
It's just a weirdness.
that's terrifying.
Yeah,
Close
no.
the door. Close the door.
Weirdness is our North Pole in this yoga. Yeah. Find weirdness and go that direction, and that's the right direction to go. And you're moving into actuality, because actuality is so much weirder than could possibly be thought.
Indeed. I like to look at pictures of creatures. The creatures are just so unimaginably weird.
So where does the word individuality fit
Same place any word fits in. It doesn't really apply. It's not negated, but it doesn't apply.
in? So when you say that you
Right.
So doesn't that apply other, one individual versus another?
Well, that way of putting it does, but that way of putting it is inaccurate, like every way of putting it is inaccurate. But this actually is cannot be described, so therefore all words are inaccurate. Putting anything is wrong. So it's just a euphemism. So I can say I'm sitting here talking to you, and that's inaccurate. It's not untrue, but it's inaccurate because what you are, I can't say. What talking is, I can't say. You know, what I am, I can't say. So I am talking to you is shorthand for something that I don't know what I'm talking about. So how accurate can it be? In other words, we're in a very weird situation. You all are appearing in my field of experience. Presumably, if you exist, I'm appearing in your field of experience. I'm doing various things as a kind of a dance because it's what I like to do. And if you actually exist, that dance may be relevant to you in some way. And some of the way that I do it may be relevant to you and useful to you or interesting to you or whatever in some way. But what's actually happening is anyone's guess and is up for grabs. But we can describe it as in the different ways we've been describing it. If I'm sitting here and I'm saying all this stuff in the hopes that it clicks with me. That's not untrue, but it's not like that. But that's not accurate. It's not actually that, because what's really going on is not linear. It can't be described in those terms accurately. But nothing can be described in any terms accurately because words are very clumsy. Words are very heavy-handed and simplistic, and actuality is very subtle and slippery and multidimensional.
So the need to deal with different explanations is to because I appear in the field. So I'm asking that question. So the meaning is to help each other that are in the field.
Well, that's one way of putting it, but that's inaccurate too. You can't say what's actually happening. You can't say why it's actually happening. I can't say the same reason we can't say why. Like you cannot clearly answer me the question why you're here. I cannot clearly answer you the question why I'm here. I mean, I can say all kinds of things. I can come up with all sorts of answers that would sound good, and so could you, but they wouldn't be the real thing because I don't know why I'm here. I'm here because I'm here. I'm here because I got out of bed this morning and came down here. You know, I don't know why I did. I mean, I did it because I'm me. I did it because I have the history I have. I did it because who knows? I can say, oh, but I came down here to try to teach, transcendental spirituality to people because I have had some insights and perhaps that might be valuable to other people that might be interested in them. And that's not untrue, but it's not really the truth. The truth is I don't know. I don't know why I'm here. Why are you here? Why did you come here? You could have done anything today. Why'd you come here? I mean, it's complicated, isn't it? It's subtle. It's slippery, isn't it? And and you look at what's happening here. What we're talking to each other. Well, that's true, but that's slippery too, isn't it? I mean, that's not all that's happening here. I don't know what's happening here, but there you go. I don't know what's happening. But life is like that. We don't know what we're doing as we live our lives. It's not all controlled and planned out and conscious and the T's crossed and the I's dotted. We're just sort of doing this weird participatory art form of we call living, and we do it the way we do it, and hopefully we do it the best we can, whatever that means. But we don't really know what we're doing or how we're doing it or why we're doing it. It just sort of seems to make sense to do it that way for whatever reasons, right? I mean, it's slippery. It's slippery, and words are like that. Words take this slippery actuality and slice it and dice it and apply these nice little coherent labels to it as if they'd all work that, as if it all made sense that way, it worked that way. But it's not really like that, is it? Things are complicated, things are slippery. So, back to basic.
Red shirt, gray sweater.
No red shirt, no gray sweater. Back to basics. The most powerful way to explore what's here is to notice to feel the immediate presence of your experience. And you will discover some things vaguely along the lines of all we've been talking about today. You will discover that it's transcendental. It just is, and it's no logic or rhyme or reason, or you can't find any mechanism or anything that's doing it or anything it's sitting on. I mean, here's the bubble of your experience. What's it sitting on? It's just floating here. What does here mean? Well, here is here. You can't answer what here is. I mean, if you go looking at what anything is, you end up with just a weird question. So, but this actuality of your experience, this feeling what it is and the way that it is what it is, will reveal, it's a bizarre, very strange nature. And especially the way that it does not conform to the way we're used to thinking about it or talking about it as human beings, which is really good right off the bat because you get extricated from that cesspool. I mean, God, contentious reality is just so pathetic. And it's so obviously inaccurate, so obviously not true in any simple sense. So, but feeling this and feeling the way in which it is what it is, it can show you, you will learn what it actually is and the way that it is that, and which of course is what you actually are, and the way you are what you are, and the way all that happens. And this is the learning curve of unfoldment into what you actually are, which happens to be, and this is just my assertion because you need to find out for yourself, happens to be an astounding condition of transcendental liberation. Because you are, in actuality, entirely independent from everything. You are what is doing reality. You are not dependent upon being done by reality. You are not in any kind of a precarious position. You are the bedrock that everything comes from. And this is directly perceivable and directly knowable. And, in my opinion, the most efficient way to discover that is by letting yourself feel, without a lot of preconception, what is present in the way that it is present. And it's at least fun and interesting. And ultimately, as you open to what it actually is, to what you actually are, you will discover this astounding fact of the transcendental nature of this, and that you are that. So that's the entire weekend in a nutshell. We can all go home now.
Great.
Miller time. Now, there's one very interesting practicality in this exploration. You can use as a kind of a tool for navigating. Anything that seems to be anything is a sign that you're with fantasy or with imagination, because actuality cannot be defined to seem to be. And when I say seem to be anything, I mean seem to be anything any particular way. Anything that you can know what it is and pin down and say, oh yeah, that's a that. Anytime you get anything in your experience that seems to be like that, that's a red flag that wait a minute. Something's, I'm missing something here. I'm screwing up, because actuality is not like that. It cannot be like that. So then that can be something you can use to look further into what's actually there to discover what it actually is, which of course will not be resolvable as anything, because nothing in actuality can be resolved as anything. Just because it's too multidimensional and slippery and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
What is a good flag? For me, it helps to just, there are just obvious mistakes, you know, in the news and politics.
What's the news and politics have to do with you?
Well, I'm able to read and hear it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, I still have this strange idea of the world. So,
Well, that's an example of what I'm talking about. If you think there's a world, then that's something that seems to be something.
no, I have not, in general, I don't consider that something I hear is less real than something I'm looking at. Like to me, the streets, it just has less detail. You know, like the news, like the United States attacked Iraq, where the who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. Any of the news is just, it's just less detail. I don't necessarily say it's more accurate or less accurate than like what bird I'm looking at, and I'm looking at a bird in a tree. It's just on the auditory channel, not the visual, unless it's on the screen. But I'm just saying, it seems to help my process to try to notice what in whatever channel seems to be more or less correct.
So what does correct mean?
Well, I guess I have a worldview where all the facts line up. You
Right.
know, where
Like you.
all the pieces line up into a picture. So the problem is that when I came here, actually my visual perception got tuned way up, like basically within the first 10 minutes, and it stayed that way the whole day. It's like a mild trance state, which is pretty cool. But it also means that I can't remember the details that used to annoy me from yesterday, like who attacked what, who deserves health care, various issues in the news. So I know that your worldview and mine are way apart anyway. So I'm just saying, you know, I like to work with relative truths. Like if something seems to at least resonate on its own level, you know. So I mean, I can sort of compare really major untruths to relative truths to things that definitely seem, you know, pretty much accurate, entirely true. It's just something that I do. You may not relate to it at all. I don't know.
Pretty much not.
Okay. All right. Fine with me. Just giving you a report.
You say that you're perceiving something as being something, kind of, I'm putting words in it, but like
Right.
believing it, that's like a clue.
Yeah.
It seems like
Anything that seems to resolve, anything that seems to be something. And be something and sort of stop there.
and that seems to be like a world outside myself.
Well, that whole mechanism creates a world outside yourself.
Then there's the concept of preference, which is quote within myself,
Right.
and that seems to be something.
Well,
I don't
preference
like
is preference, but it isn't really preference. In other words, preference is an inclination towards they call it certain apparent energy conditions. I mean, I don't know how you can define it, right? But having said that, you can't know. We may have a whole lot of theory about what preferences are and whether they're good or bad and what they have to do with you and all that, but that's all hogwash because you can't know. All you can know is there seems to be this phenomena of preference. You know, say you like blue more than you like red, or I don't know what, right? And it's just like, yeah, right. But you can't say what that is. So in that case, it's not, doesn't seem to be anything, so it's not a red flag. But if preference was preference, and I have preferences, but I shouldn't, or I should have preferences and I don't, or I have preferences but I have the wrong one, then that's this seems to be this, and it seems to be that, which is a sign that you're heavy-handedly collapsing an open-endedness down to something that when you think you know what it is. which is always an oversimplification, hence a move into unreality. Because the reality is not simple. When you collapse something down to actually being something, if I say that's just a chair, it's just a boring chair, and that's that period blank, I don't want to know. That is an infinite unknown. That's a question mark. That's a science project. It's God knows what that is. That's the actuality. But it's just a stupid chair. Who cares about chairs? Let's talk about something important. Then that's a science. See, I've taken an infinite unknown and turned it into something simple and dull and whatever. And so that right there, I'm no longer with this actuality. I'm with the fantasy of it as a limited inert thing.
Seems like that's the majority of conscious day-to-day living.
Well, it is in the consensus reality mode. It is, but it's not actual, because no one actually lives like that. People that think they're living like that aren't actually living like that, because reality functioning is not rational. You function. I get up and I walk. That's not a rational thing. I can do it, but there's no way I could say how I can do it. I can just do it. And I can go to the store and get coffee. And when I go to I can't say how I go to the store and get coffee. I can't say how I know I want coffee. And when I've gotten coffee, I can't say what coffee is, and I can't say how I got it. And yet I can do it. So that's just a simple self-evident fact. Like, no, of course I can do coffee. Coffee is just coffee, and you go to the store and you buy it, and you give them that. It's like very simple, cut and dry. But it's not really. You see, that's creating a caricature. That's creating a vast oversimplification of the actuality, which means I'm divorcing myself from the reality of my being, which is a fluidity, a participatory fluidity, and parsing it into these little chunks of things that are finite, boring, dull, things. So even rational functioning isn't really rational functioning, it just pretends to be. Even consensus reality thought isn't really that, it just pretends to be. So it's insanity. The person that's sitting in an insane asylum saying he's Napoleon isn't really being Napoleon, he's just pretending to be. He's really doing something entirely different, but he's not paying attention to that. He's paying attention to some oversimplification. Certainly. Having said that, yes.
I'm thinking about working with or questioning, is there or are there invariants in this actuality? Like you talk about the slipperiness and the non-resolvability, that seems to be a consistent feature that unavoidably seems to be that.
Yes and no. When I'm talking about these things, I'm actually playing a trick, because since what this is absolutely unresolvable, it's not resolvable as actually being that. So I can say, yeah, it's slippery, and yeah, it's this and that, but I can't prove it. And if you go looking for those things, you don't actually find them. You find something else. But that's the case. That's the very nature of unresolvability.
I did see, at least I think I found the unresolvability thing that you pointed at. At least I'm seeing something that I identify as unresolvability. So,
but unresolvability is self-unresolvable. It applies to itself. You can't resolve precisely what unresolvability is. In its sort of superficial aspects, let's say, it's very explicit and obvious. But when you try and pin it down But everything in a superficial aspect is explicit and obvious. You know, light is explicit and obvious, but then you start getting finer with it and trying to pin it down. Yeah, but what is light? It's like you end up,
Disappears.
yeah, it vanishes, but it doesn't actually vanish.
No, it turns
It's
into,
weird. It's just
it turns into, well, the Buddhists say light
Yeah.
is made of non-light elements,
Yeah.
stable is made of non-stable.
yeah, and then you go look at the non-table elements, and you can't find them either. I mean, it's all just this big circle that this goes on forever, and even unresolvability is that. Unresolvability doesn't resolve it to simply being unresolvability. It's an extremely powerful principle, but it's not. But it's a powerful principle in that it undermines the heavy-handed delusion of consensus reality thinking. But it doesn't actually. You can't actually find it.
Okay, so the word you use is principle, and I guess I'm questioning and wondering, are there other principles, such as unresolvability, that are useful in the same way?
Well, there's lots of them, and
Opening the door.
there's lots of them that we've been playing with today. Non-durationality, or you could say call it instantaneousness, and call absolute dynamism, where any condition becomes something else in the instant, even if only subtly, but nonetheless a little bit different is entirely different, and so on. But so all these principles are nice tricks as jumping off points into how amazing this condition is.
Well, it seemed to be like sticks. I can, kind of
Yeah.
wake up.
No, for sure, exactly.
change that.
No, they're good tricks. They're good jumping off points. But having jumped off, it's not like you're going to actually land there. You jump off using non-durationality, but you don't actually land in some non-durationality, because non-durationality doesn't actually resolve as that either. It's just more weirdness.
Jumping off, that's a junction phrase.
I don't know, but it's certainly a Dzogchen principle. You jump off. It's not about landing somewhere. It's about jumping off. Because if you think you're anywhere, you're in delusion. So jump off. It's not jump off into something else. It's not jump off from this onto that. It's just jump off. Because nothing is anything without being negated.
Without being negated, right?
Yeah.
I think that's really
Nothing is anything, but that doesn't cancel it out.
no.
It just means it's not. It's whatever you think it is. It's not that.
What's interesting to me is when this dissolving business happens and the objects kind of disappear, they don't disappear, but they are disappear. It's like they're not there,
Mhm.
there, same time.
Well, there-ness and not-there-ness just become irrelevant qualities. Irrelevant classifications. They're not. I mean, there-ness is not an actual category, and not-there-ness is not an actual category. But the very interesting.
Okay, you whacked me up the side of the head on that one.
The interesting property about this actuality is it has no inherent qualities, no inherent categories. So any category you approach it in terms of is too heavy-handed. It's already wrong.
Overdone.
Yeah, because it's not that it isn't that to some way, but it's not actually that. It's something else. It doesn't resolve to simply being there. This is endlessly. This is so. I mean, slippery is a really nice adjective or a really nice quality as a means of engagement with this, because any point of engagement you find with it, you lose. It
Yes.
becomes something else. Or anyway, you lose it,
Well, as long
and then
as
you look
stay
around, you
engaged,
find
right?
something else, and you engage with that, and you lose that.
Right, yeah.
It's just it's endless, bottomless, infinite loss, losing. And so each of these points of engagement turned out to be ghosts. They were false. They weren't accurate. They were what's it like? There's some myth. They're like a carrot on a string. It isn't really there. You carrot on a string, and you go for the carrot, and there's no carrot. But you've gone, which is the point.
The ineffability of that
Yeah.
situation is, it's no wonder that we create stories for ourselves to be.
Well, sure,
something
we're in
to
the
hang on to,
habit. But the fallacy is that having something to hang on to is a gain.
Yes.
And it turns out that actually having nothing to hang on to, but not needing to not hang on to things.
Wait.
Okay, there is nothing to hang on to, but you don't need to let that stop you from hanging on to things. You can reside in nothing to hang on to and still be hanging on to things because there's no things to hang on to. So when you're hanging on to things, you're not actually hanging on to things. It's like we were talking about,
You're hanging, but you're not invested in it.
well, yeah, because there's nothing, because it's not actually that.
Actually, that.
Hanging on to things isn't really hanging on to things, so it doesn't matter if you do it. It's like having a personality and enjoying your life and enjoying the soap opera, is actually and no challenge whatsoever to realization because it isn't really that. So since it isn't that, you can do it as much as you want because if it was that, it would be
Get in the
entrapping.
way.
But it's not actually that, so who cares? It's a very weird, this actuality. It's very, very weird. In a good way. I'm claiming. But am I just deceiving you to lead you on?
That's an assertion I won't
Malicious
challenge.
way.
Get this image of a mind, leaning on things like that.
Yeah, sure, tell you. Yeah. It's apropos in many ways. I mean, that's another just sort of guiding thread of all this is how completely weird this is. It's weird, and it's weirder than that, and it's weirder than that, and it's weirder than that. And so just follow the trail into ever increasing weirdness, and you're moving more and more into and more into what this is. And you eventually leave everything without having to leave anything because it's all weird. So it's all weird so you don't have to leave it because it's actually weird itself. All our normalcy is completely weird.
Or vice versa.
Yeah.
That blue guy with the 6 arms doesn't look so weird to me now.
A little coarse for my taste. So this is the yoga of radiant presence. This is what's happening here. It's 3:30. Why don't we have another 5-minute break, and then we can do our final lap of the day.
I saw you in the window.
Oh, yeah.
On the first day, and then
You
I
were
have
gone,
to.
you were gone by the time I went in, you had left some goodies for your garden.
Oh, yeah.
There was like something to eat.
No, but I was.
I know, but you were okay.
Yeah, I was.
All right, I just
But
didn't
I
talk
left
to you.
after.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to talk to you. I always like sitting and talking. Glad to see you here.
How are you? Good.
Yeah.
Not enjoying myself is one of my things.
Which one was it?
Don't do that.
Oh, there we go.
You look nice in your living room. You look nice in your living room.
I think so.
Okay, so it's not-
That's the point.
I'm looking back there at the wall right now. Maybe I don't know.
You know, if there was a certain kind of looking and Jean Paul's head, and sort of, it's almost in a line, you know what I mean? Like, it almost looked like it was moving down. I was trying to get that, capture that, but.
Probably the yes.
You're not done, are you?
No,
What?
No.
Oh, I didn't think so.
taking a break. We'll do one more session, then knock off.
Alrighty. Oh, take your time, I don't care. But seems a little hot in here, is it me? Probably. I've been walking, so. Walking and mumbling a song. Or something like it. Probably something like it. Yeah. Oh, the song.
You have some weird creatures on this picture.
This is the most interesting room I've ever sat in.
Oh,
It's pretty amazing.
that's a value. Most interesting one is that, for me, it was in Berkeley. Well, this is pretty interesting, but the one in Berkeley was it's a little performance place out in the backyard of a very one-story house, perfectly ordinary, but in the back there's a big garden. Walk back through, and then there's a second building that's about as long as this,
Oh,
and the woman is an artist that makes puppets, full-life puppets.
oh,
So the
fun.
whole thing is from ceiling to floor, full-life puppets. And they have
Those are fun.
musical guests that perform. So I saw a guy named Clive Carroll play. He's Clive Carroll is just like the most awesome, world-renowned guitarist. I was sitting like right in the front row, and he's like, what a trip! That's so Berkeley. Yeah. This is the. Do you have kids? Nan?
No, I don't. I've never had children. It's funny because it never really got my attention much until kind of recently, and when the game's out, it's like,
should have done it when I had the chance. Yeah.
Thank God.
I enjoy it from the car at this point. How about you, Peter? Family?
I have twin daughters, 33-year-old.
They're around here?
One of them lives in Sebastopol and one of them lives in Brooklyn.
That's different.
It is.
Elster Eagle Kensington, on the way.
We should release this.
I mean, this Mexican place is just the most fantastic place. You know, and, they don't make reservations, but there's no garden. Come on Shattuck.
How do you spell that?
Comal, C-O-M-A-L. Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I live in Kensington, which is right next to Berkeley, and who's else?
It's funny, right?
Oh, yeah. What's a very nice posh area?
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Right. I swear, it's nice.
It should.
Yeah, I was thinking it's across the tree, that's usually sometimes.
oh, gotcha, right. Because he's not gonna go with something.
Yeah.
Gotcha, yeah. So. I'm not gonna be president anymore. Anyways.
Yeah, I think so.
I just get caught one lousy bag.
How far away, how far drive is it?
Ding, ding, ding,
Are we back? So you may have noticed that this is very strange in the sense that there's nothing to do, there's nothing not to do, there's no certainty of finding it or not finding it, there's no certainty, there's no prescription of, oh, I should do this or I should not do that, which can seem very open-ended. You know? And of course, most spirituality bypasses the problematic aspects of that by prescribing all sorts of, oh no, you need to sit in meditation at least 2 hours a day, you need to have your prescribed deity, you need to wear these funny clothes, you need to get a foreign name, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to learn this foreign language. All of which is fine as a way to keep you off the streets and give you something to do, but it doesn't actually do anything for you in terms of, you know, letting you engage more accurately in what this is, which it turns out is the only powerful and effective path or process or thing to do in all of this. It actually is anything. It actually does anything. All the rest of it is just pretense and lifestyle changes.
I disagree with that
Okay.
very heavily because it seems to me there has to be a certain kind of readiness
Right.
to actually get this stuff.
Absolutely.
And it seems to me all those practices kind of tenderize the meat.
It may or may not, but what tenderizes the meat in that per se can be anything. It can also be a life of hard living. It can also be, you know, it can also be health problems. It can also be anything.
But
but-
for those people who
No, for sure.
do that, that's what tenderize.
You know, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of that. The problem with the only downside of that is so much of it pretends to be more than it is. Much of it pretends to be, you know, do this and you will go the distance for you, whereas in actuality that's not completely true. That's not completely accurate. Which is not to say it's necessarily valueless. All experience is valuable because all experience is reality engaging with itself. But the problem with experience, which pretends to be something in itself, is it tends to be self-reinforcing and a seduction into more of the same. So you can learn how to do something, and then you spend your time doing that and thinking that that's valuable in itself. All of which is fine. There's nothing wrong with spending your time doing things. But the idea, the spiritual pretense that, oh, but this is going to lead to something, is little simplistic. So the most powerful engagement with this is to be with this in its own mode. And its mode is supremely slippery and flexible and unresolvable and strange. You can be with it any old way. I mean, all human experience is, of course, being with reality. Right? There's nothing but being with reality because it's the only game in town. But arguably, the sort of the, going along with the herd of being with reality in sort of consensus reality terms is the least efficient way of engaging with it in terms of discovering what it is very profoundly, and letting go of all those safety nets of structure into just the naked presence of actuality as it is. Although challenging, because how do you do that? What do I do? In the resounding silence of lack of answer to those questions, is the most efficient, or can be, or maybe not. Maybe it wouldn't do shit for you. Have at it. You pays your money and you takes your chances.
I'm wondering if you can help me pick apart time.
Sure.
Because I feel very gripped by
that
concept.
Okay. In what way do you feel gripped by time? What does time seem to be to you?
I guess it's the continuity of self, is or like of this like body and all my dreams about what I'm going to do with my life and stuff like that.
Right.
It holds my attention for most of my day.
Right. Okay. Is it the continuity that's an issue, or is it your own absorption in that, your own investment in that? In other words, how attractive that seems to be to you?
Oh yeah, probably the attraction.
Yeah. Why do you see that as a problem? Or I should say, do you see that as a problem? I'm assuming that's not how you put it.
That is a good question. I guess it seems like it. I've had other experiences where I'm not absorbed in thinking about the future, and often those are more pleasant. So all more pleasant experiences.
So pleasantness attracts you.
Yeah.
And the absorption and the strategy is somehow less pleasant often.
Yes, but it still is attractive.
Okay.
It's like reaching for pleasantness also.
Well, I think ultimately you're going to find it's a self-regulating system, that you're drawn to what attracts you until you're no longer drawn to it.
Yeah.
And it's like people who become alcoholics or something, or become drug addicts, and maybe eventually they overcome it. Maybe they don't, but maybe eventually they overcome it when they're ready to overcome it. But if your energy moves in a certain way, it's because the nature of the energy system that you are at the moment that you are that, in the entirety of your circumstances, that's the way you gravitate. That's what you're drawn to. Is because of who you are, right? Your taste, your nature, whatever. I would say one thing: you're fairly young, and it's a natural. It seems to be a natural condition for younger people to be drawn into this, being outwardly directed, being directed into establishing themselves in their lives and their circumstances and all that. So I think that in one sense there's just sort of a biological tide that's sort of pushing you that way. And I can speaking as a person who's somewhat less young at present, certainly less young than I wish I was, that tide will tend to abate itself and subside and beat itself to death on the rocks and of the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune and frustration and failures. Maybe that's too much about me.
Great, I'll look forward to that.
But even the fact that you're seeing that as having degrees of unpleasantness and seeing other things as pleasant means you have irons and other fires, and those aspects are liable to take room on their own too, just because you do recognize that and you perceive that. I mean, basically the way our energy runs is kind of a self-regulating system. So, you're doing what you're doing, which is a transition to moving towards doing what you're going to be doing, which will be certainly different than you expect it to be. I can promise you that.
Yes.
So, so all your plans are for nothing.
Good.
Not to dash water on them, but they're not going to actually work out the way you intend. Maybe, I don't know, maybe.
I'm planning on them not working out, so maybe they will.
Good, that's a wise thing to do. You show wisdom beyond your years. Pre-anticipate failures. Failure and frustration is a really good realistic strategy.
And changing the face of it.
But the most powerful point of engagement is just the simple presence of your real-time experience. Bang! Right here, right now. This, that is here. Just that. Any way that you're with it, being as that, is powerful. And it's cumulative too. So you touch this and then you get drift off into your thoughts and get caught up in your bullshit and whatever life. Same old life happens. And then you come back and you touch this again. And every time you touch this, you're deeper than the last time you touched it. It's cumulative, it builds on itself. That's why I call this the yoga of greater presence. It's a path. It's the very nature of what this actually is, what experience actually is, what reality actually is. It's powerful the more directly and nakedly it's noticed or engaged with. And it's also cumulative. It never loses itself. It always builds. It's like putting a penny in a piggy bank. It just keeps building. It keeps building. It keeps building.
How do you get that feeling?
The very nature of if you know a little bit about Dzogchen, you're familiar with this. The very nature of this engagement is it tends to be momentary. It tends to be a sort of a momentary and then you drift off or you lose it, you float away, you're caught up in something or whatever. And then sooner or later you come back to it, and then you drift off and you float away and you get caught up and you forgot and you're distracted. That. But the point of this is that it's not that you need to reinvent the wheel every time, but on the contrary, it's cumulative. So every moment of revelation builds on the previous one, regardless of apparent intervening time and experience. So this yoga is very powerful. The degree to which it's a naked engagement with presence, and it builds on itself. So its power is
Even if it seems like a dribble today.
Yeah.
It's a worthy dribble.
Yeah. It's not like you need to start from zero every time. It's not like it doesn't need to be maintained. You don't need to hold it. I mean, this is a common fallacy in spiritual stuff. I get clarity once in a while, but then I lose it. I can't hold it. Just get it every once in a while, and it builds on itself, and it feeds itself, and you learn how to do it by doing it intermittently. So you do it once by accident, and the next time you'll do it more skillfully, just intrinsically. You're not like it's something you need to contrive or remember or figure out. It just is like that. It recognizes itself. Yeah, it's in my experience, it's totally true. It recognizes this is all about.
That's the first thing I think you said. It's totally true.
Okay,
First time I've
red
heard that.
flag. Anything that seems to be something is a red flag.
I'm just joshing.
No, we're just having fun here.
Does it matter whether you recognize or not? Does it matter whether you recognize it or not?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean in what way.
Well, to me, it seems like when that happens, I recognize, then I forgot.
Oh, that's fine,
I
yeah.
recognize it, and I forgot.
Yeah.
But also, you may think something else.
Yeah, doesn't matter what else you think. You don't need to hold it. You don't need to retain it. Just that moment of clarity, that moment of recognizing is very powerful. And that's all that needs to happen. Just that from time to time.
It's very hard to describe it.
Impossible.
But how do you know you did recognize or not?
You know because it's how strange it is. I don't know. You learn to recognize. You learn to know it by learning to know it. You know, it verifies itself. It explains itself. It teaches itself. You can't really put into words. It has a power to it, and an authority to it, and a value to it that is immediately, self-verifying. So just in that moment, oh wow, and so it proves itself just by being what it is. It's not anything that can be put into words or described or explained or justified, because it's not rational, really, ultimately. And I mean, I think one of the most accurate ways, or least inaccurate ways, to refer to it is it's a kind of a self-recognition, where what is experiencing recognizes experience and recognizes that it is that. It's a kind of like, to speak metaphorically, it's kind of like seeing yourself in a mirror. You know, the experiencing consciousness sees experience and gets that. Wow, wait a minute, this is me somehow. I mean, that's poetic. It's not literally like that, but I think it's a kind of a recognition that where reality recognizes itself as experiencing, and typically that comes just in little flashes, because the nature of the mind kicks in and it'll start to think about it and talk about it to, oh wow, that was amazing, look at that, wow, yes, I saw this and it was blah blah blah, and that of course takes you off typically into whatever. But then sooner or later you come back to that same thing. The recognition again happens.
But to me, it seems like there are two different kinds. Or just only, wow.
Uh-huh.
Can't say.
That's
Just
clear.
that-
That's clear.
Yeah.
What's the other one? You said
Another
two.
one is close distance. And
It's okay.
it's a small movement.
Yeah, that's okay. It can seem, it's the same thing. There's no one way that it is. It presents itself as anything. But the important thing is the validity of it conveys itself. The meaningfulness of it conveys itself. It is, it's clear. In some way, it's obvious that, wow, there's something here. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's the important part. It's not what it looks like, doesn't matter at all. Because it looks like this and it looks like that, but what it really is doesn't look any one particular way. It looks like anything. So it's not about what it looks like. It's about that recognition, which is irrespective of characteristics. It doesn't matter what characteristics it seems to have in terms of, oh, it seems to be like this or seems to be like that. The important thing is its genuineness, its presence, and its it validates itself. I mean, I know you know about this. I know you had this experience, and that's great. That's all that's all you need is just to have that kind of experience every once in a while. That's all.
It's happening more often.
True. It does that. It builds on itself. It builds on itself. It's a natural progression of it. But it's a mistake. It's naive to expect it to become permanent or stable, or now it's here and it's never. Because the very nature of what it is a continually slipping away from itself and continually becomes something else. Always going off. It always splits off from itself into a dream. It always splits off from itself into confusion. It's its nature. And so sooner or later, ultimately, recognizing it is recognizing that splitting off is it too. So not just the moment of clarity is it, but the splitting off is it too. And that's when you never lose it, because then even when you're losing it, that's it. You're not losing it. but it all comes naturally. It all comes naturally. You don't need to make sense of it or do anything. Just to have those occasional moments of insight, occasional moments of just naked recognition, whatever it looks like. That's all that matters. And it does everything itself.
When you're losing it, well, I mean, the whole process is out of control.
Of course, because it losing itself is its very nature. It's in the business of losing itself. That's what it is always doing. That's what all this is. It's tripping on itself, and it's like, woo! And so, as we come to recognize this more and more directly, this becomes clearer and clearer, and we learn how to sensitize ourselves to recognize it not just as the clarity, but also as the unclarity, because that's it too. It's doing the whole schmear. And this spontaneously and inherently just becomes more and more obvious.
Somehow you need the clarity to understand the movement.
Yeah, you do.
Otherwise,
You do. Well, typically the clarity is where it's kind of the cutting edge of where the rubber meets the road. I mean, that's kind of what seems to be doing the work. But the work that it does ultimately is incorporating the unclarity into itself. Although that's not necessarily apparent at first. At first it seems like, I lost it, I have to be right inside. Now I'm just like, off, and, in my feather head, what happened? But as you get more and more mature, as you get more subtle and sensitive in terms of just skillful at being with this and appreciating this, basically self-recognition, then you get to, wow, the splitting off is it too. In fact, the splitting off is really its hallmark. The clarity is like almost a side effect, is almost an accident, but the splitting off is its lifeblood. It's always just splitting off of itself. It's always missing itself is its direct hit, because that's its basic mode. I mean, we're all familiar with that, right? Life is a process of continually missing. And that is the life force. The life force it's in the business of missing itself. It's in the business of splitting off. When we're sort of more naive spiritually, we think, no, I want the clarity, I want the good stuff, I want just the transcendental. But then of course all the other stuff is that too. And it's even more subtle because it's so artfully disguised.
The metaphor of sleeping or you dreaming is perfect also in the sense that dreaming is a way to access the richness of everything, the richness of potential experience. And becoming lucid during that is also a metaphor for waking up, because as a lucid dreamer, you know you're the dreaming, but you can interact with it or not, and you can go back to just dreaming and not being lucid. In other words, you let it go to be what it is. So, I mean, if you've experienced lucid dreaming, so very much a personal experience.
Oh, sorry. Yes, yell out if I'm not.
I mean, this might be me mincing words inside my head or something, but you use the word spiritual to describe this. How are you using that word?
With my tongue firmly in my cheek. This is what spirituality actually is. What we're talking about here is the true spirituality in one sense. But in another sense, spiritual is such a load of hogwash because originally contrasting spiritual with any supposed non-spiritual is an absurdity because everything is spiritual in actuality. And in the second place, there's this huge, vast marketplace of social involvement and financial enterprise, which we're all familiar with, which goes under the guise of spirituality, which is basically just human hucksterism.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, there's a lot of negative valence around the word.
Totally, I agree. At least for me too, so it's kind of a joke. But at the same time, what spirituality is really about is exactly what we're addressing here. This is the actuality of what spirituality pretends to be. That's what I say, and if you call the numbers, operators, you're standing by. Take your number. We'll be glad to sell you the short pass. Only $1,000 a month.
1 year.
Because like to go back, I think what he was saying is like, do you really need a tenderization, or do you just need the right words that kind of
Yeah, you can't say it. Can't say it. I mean, that's another of one of the beguiling, the confusing aspects of all this, is that there's no one size fits all at all. Everyone is in an absolutely unique situation with an absolutely unique path. For some people, a single word and bang. It's like, whoa, wow, amazing, incredible, I never would have thought. And for other people, they're plugging away and slogging away and year after year, and yet they can realize too. You just never know. And then some people, never realize, and some people without slogging away, and some people are slogging away and they don't realize. So it's all bets are off. It's just it's a corruption. It's you have to make your own opportunity in a way. Not that you have control over that necessarily. So there's no way to formalize. I look at something like the formalities of Buddhism, where they kind of have an assembly line of, you go through this and you do this process and you do this for X years, and whatever. On the theory that one size fits all, you go through this assembly line and it's going to do something, and I see that as absurd. Because people are so unique and so different. Everyone's in a different place, starting off from a different place with different capabilities and different strengths, different weaknesses, different blind spots, different assets to draw on, and so on. So everyone's a one-off. Yes.
From one of the people that moved along. So sometimes something will catch my attention, right? And I'll have an emotion attached to it. Or a thought and then an emotion, or emotion and a thought, or
Sure.
whatever. Something, right? So boom, there I see something or someone, and there's a story.
Right.
But I may or may not be conscious that immediately. But like there's all this other stuff that's going on that I'm not, my mind is just, that I'm not aware of.
Right.
But yet I'm aware of.
Right.
Is that sort of like what she was talking about, is that sort of like where it's at?
Yes, that is your great opportunity.
Or does that mean I'm like dissociating or something?
Well, it may or may not mean you're dissociating, but
Can you elaborate on that?
yes. So you have your story, you have this is happening, you have your reaction to it, you have that whole thing going on, okay? Anything that's outside of that is not that. That is all tried and true. It's all written, it's all pre-programmed. You know how that goes. You know how that algorithm works. You plug in this, and the machinery turns, and it spits out that. But all this other stuff over here is all vague and mysterious, and who knows what. So that's a whole different paradigm. That's a whole different mode over there. And even if you're not in the habit of paying attention to it, the fact that it's there at all is a great opportunity, because you can just check it out from time to time and say, okay, all this is going on over here, and I'm all absorbed in it like usual. But this is over here. Let me just play around with that for a moment. And then, typically you get sucked back into your stuff and all that, right? But then you can go back over here and check it out. So that becomes a great opportunity just to get out of your own way, to get out of your own process, which is basically a closed loop. The problem with that process is it doesn't really lead anywhere other than back to itself, more or less. I mean, it doesn't actually, literally, but it, more so.
Much of the time I recognize that it's just a story.
Yeah, sure. Of course. We're all familiar with that. We all do that.
And then, but I'm starting to sort of I feel like I'm starting to sort of recognize that there's that going on. And
Right.
then this sort of vastness that's not,
Yes.
it's there.
Right.
And I was wondering if that, I know, I mean, I'm trying to balance, what I'm trying to do right now is, sort of getting,
Well,
whatever it is to get.
just that you know that there is this other stuff there is huge. That's great. That's validated. You can consider yourself validated. That's it's very cool to just to have, even if you're not paying much attention to it, just to know that's there is great. And just flirt with the idea of just sort of checking it out a little bit once in a while. And don't worry too much about how to do that a little bit. Just sort of like every once in a blue moon, just sort of space out and say, I'm thinking about this over here. What's over there? And just play with that, just very gently and playfully, and don't worry about it too much.
But the minute I start to sort of pay attention over here, then something else grabs my attention.
Yeah, of course. That's okay. Don't worry about it. Just a little flicker is all you need. It's a lot more powerful than you think. You don't need to maintain it. It's not like you need to go there and stay there. Just touch it.
I know we're so conditioned to have to,
Yeah.
do our ABCs and
Right.
1, 2, 3s and
Yeah.
meditation.
This is not like that. This is not like that at all. This is about getting hit by a cosmic ray. This is not about building a castle. Well, I feel very pleased about today. I don't know how you all feel, but that's your problem. But I think we've opened the door to this, the power of this actuality and the strangeness of this actuality, which is all that really matters. And then, there's all sorts of little details and nuances that can be explored in this aspect of it and that aspect of it. And that's all valuable and important. But the main thing is just that this is like that, and that the fact that this is the way it is the powerful fact. And just having having any degree of knowing that, any degree of playing with that, flirting with that, is very powerful. And I think you will find it will prove to be powerful if you continue to play with it. And that's really all that this is about. Because as we've been talking about, there's not just any particular method or anything you have to do or anything you have to not do or anything you have to hang on to. It's just not like that. It's really just a matter of letting go into weirdness and becoming acclimatized to how weird this is, which is pretty obvious. I mean, anyone that doesn't have some sense of that just has their head in the sand or somewhere. Yes.
If you like to me, I have a sense that it's an opportunity.
Mhm.
That's some awareness with. But it seems to me that it's happens in, similar environments.
Uh-huh.
And so, I'd like what to happen in any environment,
Okay.
or every environment.
Right. Okay.
So, I'm finding that it's, I'm finding it's kind of limited to me to certain environments.
Okay. Well, you can, to begin with, you can pursue those environments to the extent it's practical. And as you become more familiar with what this is, just by accumulating experience with it, perhaps you'll be able to recognize hints of it elsewhere. What is it? You know, I mean, just any little snippets. You know, like you see a beautiful sunset, or you're startled by a car honking next to you. I mean, anything. Who knows what, right? But this, it's very typical at first to have some kind of conditions that are most amenable to you, that are workable for you to sort of have things be popping. But as you develop more sensitivity and more sort of skillfulness at recognizing it and being with it, I think you'll find that you'll be able to, like I say, find snippets of it elsewhere in your experience, and which will invite you to explore those aspects, and I think eventually you can kind of find it much more broad spectrum.
Should I be, like, placing myself into positions where I just experiment with it?
Play with it. Experimenting is good. Playing with it's good. You know, the most efficient and the most productive way to be with this stuff is playful. The least efficient way to be with this stuff is dutiful or plotting it. So experimenting is great. Playing is even better. So just play with it. Every once in a while, just find yourself in some weird environment. Say, let me see if I can find it here somewhere. I mean, just be silly about it. You know, just be frivolous. And you may find that actually is advantageous. But if you can recognize this to any degree anywhere, you will ultimately be able to recognize it everywhere. Because the important thing is recognizing it, not whether it's here or there. Because of course, ultimately it is everywhere, and it's the recognition that counts. And again, just remember that recognizing it is powerful. It really is powerful, and it really is cumulative, even if it doesn't seem like that. So even if you only get this every once in a blue moon circumstances, it's still powerful, and it will still lead to more than that. It's going on 4:30. I feel like we've had a full day. I don't know if you're toasted and dizzy. If you're not yet, I haven't been doing my job. But I'll be here at about 10 tomorrow, and if you'd like to join me, I'd love to have you, and we'll play with this some more. Onwards and whatever.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.